You have no idea how many times I have shared something that affected me or my business, and because I shared it, it sort of turned the tide. Can anybody else relate? Can you relate? Tell me if you can relate with that. And I think that's sad. I really think it's a sad world that we're living in, that the only way, in many cases, the only way that I can possibly be heard, or hey Stace, I see you, the only way that I can possibly get things done is by bringing them out in the open, bringing them in the public. And of course, I'm not suggesting that it has always worked in my favor when I went public with certain things. In fact, there are certain things I can clearly remember because I went public with them. Later down the road, they served as a stumbling block. They were, they were like an impediment. They were like a roadblock, a detour in my business journey. But still, there are things that I share that I know have sort of turned the direction of the narrative. And one such incident is the one I'm about to share with you now. Many of you know that one of the biggest challenges we have, especially within the CBD, is the arbitrary, illegal erection, establishment of bus stations or bus stops. Because the number of buses we have in Lusaka are so ubiquitous, not ubiquitous, ubiquitous. There's so many buses, especially the mini buses. There's so many of them that the city, Lusaka City Council, not only does the council not have the money to build bus stations on every corner, because that's just not practical. Not only do they not have that ability to do that, aside from that, people don't realize that Lusaka has a master plan. There is a grand master plan that's been on the books for decades. For decades. It didn't just crop up a few days ago. It's been on the books for decades. And one of the components of the master plan is to get rid of these small minibuses and then trade them in for larger, more not only comfortable, but more functional buses. How many people know that the vast majority of the buses we have on our streets, especially in Lusaka City, these small minibuses, not only are many of them not roadworthy, there are just too many of them. And sadly, one of the reasons that these buses are in the state that they're in is because many people in the police own these buses. Can you believe that? I mean, you talk about a conflict of interest. Talk about a conflict of interest. Let's stop there for a moment. How do you have a transport? Yes, we appreciate that Chiluba, our second Republican president, because in order for you to understand the bus industry, the public transportation industry in Zambia, you have to go all the way back to 1991. If you don't go back to 91 and to President Chiluba's administration and his presidency, you won't understand what you see here today. Let me recap. In 1991, Chiluba, our second president, liberalized the economy. And one of the things that he did was that he told Zambians, you can order buses from anywhere. There was like a window where you didn't have to pay tax. You didn't have to pay all this stuff with your car. The buses were flooding in. They were just flooding in. It was like a tsunami of buses. And at that time, now you got to think, in 1991, transportation was very, very difficult to get on. The transportation sector was largely dominated by UBZ. You remember UBZ? But it was inadequate. It was inadequate to deal and to address the needs of the public. I remember, many of you don't remember this, but I remember there were days when you queued up for a bus, you had to fight to get on a bus. Does anybody remember that? I remember it. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember it like it happened this morning. We went through that in the 80s and part of the 80s and bleeding right at the doorstep of the 90s. You had to fight to get on a bus. Just to get to somewhere, you had to fight. And then here it is, President Chiluba came in with his liberalized economy concept, and he allowed Zambians to just order buses. And we did. But the problem with the buses is that we ordered new buses, but we allowed the buses to literally we allowed the wheels to fall off the wagon until the bus simply could not move. So we have a bunch of buses on our street that are absolutely not roadworthy. They do not have lights, they don't have brakes. How many times do you hear about buses getting into road accidents? It's because many of them are not roadworthy. They simply don't belong on the street. And one of the reasons that they belong on the street is because law enforcement, the police, are largely the ones that are running the transportation industry. So on one hand, if you've got the police running the public transportation industry, or rather the public transportation sector, if you have law enforcement doing that, on the other hand, when it comes to regulation and laws and traffic regulation, how are they going to uphold that? Because they're the ones who let their broken down buses pass things like fitness exams. How does a bus that doesn't have headlights pass a fitness exam? These are the problems we're facing. So consequently, what we have is a huge, gargantuan, unmanageable number of buses that are not roadworthy, that are choking our streets. But because there has already been a master plan drawn up and designed, even approved, but not implemented because there's pushback from these interested parties. There are people within the system that push back against the grand Lusaka City Master Plan. They push back against it because it means it affects their pockets. It means a person who has 10 buses will be forced to get rid of those 10 buses and then introduce bigger buses, but at a lower number. So at one point, if you had 10 small buses that are choking the road, with the new grand Lusaka Master Plan, you get rid of 10 buses, you get maybe 4 buses, but they are bigger. They have more seats. The people who own these buses don't want to go into that sort of agreement because in their minds, it affects their bottom line. It affects their pockets. So they would rather, I'd rather, in their minds, they say, I'd rather have a city that's choked full of tiny buses. I'd rather have a city that is not functional, full of tiny little buses. I'd rather have that than to have a functional city with less buses, but bigger buses. Less buses, a lower number of buses, but fewer, bigger buses. They don't want that. So these are the things that you have to deal with. So I said all that to say this. Because the local authority doesn't have the dexterity, the municipality, Lusaka City Council, doesn't even have the money to build more bus stations, because the truth is that's not even the answer. The solution is not more bus stations. The solution is adherence to the grand master plan. The Lusaka master plan, if it were to be implemented, Lusaka would tick, man. And as far as the transportation sector is concerned, we wouldn't have to deal with so many illegal tiny buses that are not worthy to be on the street. So because of this choking, this is why you find bus stops, bus stations are being erected everywhere and anywhere. If you go to Kabulonga, there by Lusaka girls and Lusaka boys, there are 2 bus stops. Those are not stations. Now, for clarity, let's be clear. There's a difference between a bus stop and a bus station. Let's define. Let's learn. A bus stop is a point of transit, meaning buses come, for example, they come from the city, they drive through Kabulonga, they either drop someone off or pick someone up quickly in transit. That's a bus stop. A bus station is where buses wait for passengers and customers to come. Kulima Tower is a bus station. City Market has a component of a bus station. Lumumba, there on Lumumba Road, there is a bus station. Because we have a situation where the city has no plan to deal with arbitrary erection of bus stops, this is the reason you see bus stations, illegal bus stations, mushrooming everywhere. Everywhere. In Kabulonga, near Kabulonga boys, Kabulonga girls, there are 2 bus stops on either side of the street. Both of those bus stops have been turned into bus stations by cadres. So instead of those bus stops being bus stops, they've turned them into bus stations. There are many buses that are parked there from about 16 hours onwards. What that does is that it throws off the motor ecosystem of that area. It throws it off. It imbalances it. Why? Because when engineering there at Lusaka City Council, when they designed those 2 bus stops as bus stops, they were not designed as bus stations. But because cadres feel they are above the law, they can do whatever the hell they want, they set up illegal bus stations. And Lusaka City Council, and people don't realize the important, critical, vital role that council police are supposed to play in our city. I keep telling you, Lusaka has a city of Lusaka City has a population of about 4 million people, thereabouts, 4 million some odd. Lusaka City Council only has a paltry, a measly, an insignificant 105 council police. What is the job of the council police? That's one of their jobs, to make sure that things like illegal bus stations are not erected. One of the jobs of the council police is to make sure that people are parking in the right spot. When you park in the wrong spot, you're supposed to be charged. Council police is not just for chasing street vendors for 30 minutes a day. Unfortunately, that is what we have relegated the job of council police to. Under this current administration there at Lusaka City Council, under that leadership of that council there, right now, they just need just do whatever you want. You know, a council police officer is just good for chasing vendors for 30 minutes, and then that's it. The job of a council police officer is extremely important, and it's multifaceted. Council police are inadequately equipped. They don't have comms. They don't have communication. It's just they're just walking around with a blue uniform and as we say in Zambia, a cape, and they're just running around chasing street vendors. Oh, uyo bwereza mabanana kuno yo bwereza fibika kuno mokutwala afilianga twafika kunganda chilishana ero yo ikabwekesha ngakusangena futhi pano ukachimona waimvela yo. Okay, tuleni, let's go. Council has bastardized the vital role of council police. It's more than that, and it's multifaceted. Council police, if they were doing their job the right way, the city would change. So here it is. As many of you know, for those of you that come to this area, Lumumba Road is being worked on. A drainage system is being installed across Lumumba Road, right by the traffic lights. The bus station, the illegal bus station that was operating on the corner of Katondo Street and Lumumba Road, because of these new works for the drainage system, there are a number of buses that have been moved from the corner of Katondo Street and Lumumba Road. They've been moved into the new Simon Mwewa Market. Now, I spoke to the councillor about that. I spoke to the town clerk about that. I said to them, these new buses, this illegal bus station that you've planted in the market there, why are those buses there? Because there's no workable space for those buses inside the market. Those border concrete sections that they put along the road, these cadres have started breaking those to gain access to the market. Can you imagine this? I mean, I want you to grasp this. They've started breaking the concrete block barriers along the road so that their buses can gain access to inside the market. Inside the market, they are utilizing a space that they are not going to pay Lusaka City Council. Lusaka City Council is not going to make one kwacha from that. But these buses, full in that market. I asked Councillor Mwanza, Harry Mwangankumbla, Councillor Mwanza, I asked him, I said, but why are those buses there? He says, no, that's just a temporary move while they're working on the drainage system. I know that language. Whenever someone says, no, that's just temporary, it's temporary. No, the buses will just be there for some time as they're working on the drainage. Woofy. That means now the bus station, there's a new bus station now inside the Simon Mwewa Market. At least if the bus station was paying, if the buses were paying to council, but they're not. They're not paying, number one. Number two, the space that they want to occupy there was being used by the market as a drop-off and a collection point for garbage. A very important section in the market, very important. But bus drivers have turned that portion into a bus stop. The garbage collection point has been removed. When you ask them, okay, if you remove the garbage collection point here, where will you take the garbage? It was citizen, we don't know. No planning. And you wonder. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. It's a very big problem. Do with it what you think is necessary. All right, I got a meeting at 17:30. Bye.